Hello, my name is Sofia Dorinskaya. I'm a doctor and head of the Center for Medical Information. Today, I would like to talk with you about the following topic. Are we really smarter than previous generations? Because you have to agree, there is a feeling that in the modern world, everything is already known. Modern medicine can do things that have never existed in the history of medicine on this planet. Our scientists, they know things that no one has ever known before. And today, I would like to reflect on this topic. Are we really smarter than the people who lived before us? What makes a foolish person different from a smart one? Is it a matter of quality? And what is this quality of the mind? This quality of the mind is the ability to see identity, similarity, and difference. Now I will demonstrate this to you very simply. You may know that throughout human history, there have been several types of book publications. Everyone knows that there were scrolls. That is, a sheet of paper or a sheet of parchment. It was simply rolled up like this into a scroll, literally unrolled and read. This is the scroll type of publication. Books were also written on palm leaves. These are literally palm leaves. There were sets of these leaves. They were stacked in a pile, with protective wooden covers on the top and bottom. A silk cord was threaded through the entire work with some slack, so you could flip through these palm pages and read the text written on them. Another type of publication that appeared when people learned to make parchment and later paper is the so-called codex. Here, I'm showing you books that are exactly the same in terms of publication type. These books are called codices. And they are absolutely identical. They are the same. They are absolutely identical to each other. And this is called identity. What is similarity? This book, A History of Alphabetical Order by Judith Flanders, describes how the alphabet appeared, how writing emerged, how books spread across the planet, and so on. This book, by its title, Document Studies, describes the types of documents, how to create them, what the rules are for printing and storing them, how a book differs from a brochure, and so on. This book, Library, Bibliography, Documentation by Paul Atlee, describes the work of a librarian, working with books, bibliography, how to describe books, how to keep inventory books. In general, it's a very interesting book. For those who are involved in this field, I highly recommend it. The topics these books are dedicated to. This is a similar topic. You have to agree. It's somewhat alike. It's a related topic regarding documents, writing, how people should organize their books, libraries. So basically, the topic is similar. And this is called similarity because if we are close, like I have a book, next to it is Umberto Eco and Moroza. By the way, yes, the topic here is also about books, but it doesn't matter. This is fiction. This is not fiction. This is a scientific work. This is a scientific work. This is popular science. But this is like someone's dissertation, so the topic here is similar. If I put here, for example, an instruction manual on how to use a coffee maker, and it was also published as a book or recipes, and they were published as a code too. But it would explain how to make pancakes. So these books definitely have more in common in terms of subject than a cookbook does. But notice that each of these books is dedicated to its own topic. The subtitles here. Polly Atlee doesn't write about how the alphabet originated. Subtitles. And in document studies, there are textbooks by Natalia Kushnarenko. It doesn't say here how books were distributed, or how to start an inventory book, or how to fill out library cards. You see, these are different books. So, the more precisely a person's mind sees identity, similarity, and differences, the smarter that person becomes. So, where can we find what is the very quintessence of the mind, the quintessence of these ideas that a person must distinguish in the meanings of words? And let's take a look, for example, at words, how they looked, and how different ideas were described by words. For example, before the revolution, before that very upheaval. For example, the word mirror was written in two different ways. Mir with a hard sign at the end and a certain letter, and mir with a different letter, a stick with a dot, and a hard sign at the end. And these two words mir were written like that, with two completely different meanings. The first mir means no war. It's the opposite of war. The second mir refers to the universe. And even in the modern world, I've seen people who said, look, Graf Tolstoy wrote the book War and Peace, but now we just have mir, spelled as M and I and R. Yes, and that's very interesting. But Graf Tolstoy, did he mean mir as the absence of war or as the universe? What did Graf Tolstoy actually mean? If you look at how the word mir was written before the revolution, he understood the word mir as the absence of war, not as the universe. Let's look at another word that existed before the revolution, which was written differently. The word est was written in the sense of to be, to exist, like we use it now. And there was the word est from the word eda, shiat, meaning to eat, to consume food. And although these two words sounded the same, in writing they were completely different. And people knew perfectly well when the word est was used in the sense of to be, to exist, and when it was used in the sense of to eat, to consume food, and acted accordingly. People, in the past, it was much more meticulous. The use of language was much more meticulous. People distinguished the meanings of words, and therefore, the automatic vocabulary of those people who lived before us was, excuse me, richer. After all, let's remember that even at the beginning of the 20th century, there were classical gymnasiums. What is a classical gymnasium? A classical gymnasium is a school where Greek and Latin were taught. And look, people who knew several foreign languages, they passed away, well, somewhere in the 80s or 90s, in the 20th century. And now, a person who has learned English well enough is simply considered a genius. And if they know several languages, and if they can speak them, and if they can even translate, then they just seem extraordinary now. It's just, well, a real miracle. But before, they used to graduate people by classes, entire classes of graduates. There were people who knew English, French, Spanish, Italian, German, Portuguese. It was normal. Knowing 6 or 7 languages after graduating from high school was normal. Why? Why? Because in classical high schools, they taught Latin and Greek right away, and those are the languages that form the basis of all European languages. Therefore, when children were taught the essence of the language, where it originated from, then learning a second, third, fifth, seventh, or even 15th language, whichever you wanted, was basically just a matter of technique and, well, some relative diligence. I was here some time ago at the local museum. This house used to belong to a baron or a count, I'm not sure, and now it houses the county archive, and part of the room is open to the public. Please, you can go there. The former owner's bookshelves are still there, and I was just amazed. There is a row of volumes there, about this thick, probably 12 of them, in Latin, and there's Seneca and someone else, all in Latin. These philosophers and the books are in quite good condition. I mean, they weren't published in the 17th century. Sorry, they're from somewhere around the late 19th century. They're in excellent condition. The books are gorgeous. Editions with nice covers. These aren't just some book blocks that you would have to take somewhere to get bound, or that the owner wrapped in some paper himself. No, these are quality, professionally printed editions. At least 12, maybe 15 volumes. What does that mean? It means that the printing houses believed that by publishing such a large collection, they would find buyers who read Latin, and that means people were happily buying these books and reading them in Latin. The beginning of the mid-20th century. You see, now someone might easily and simply read a Latin or Greek text. I have a Greek-Russian dictionary specifically for classical gymnasiums. Sometimes, well, excuse me, you can't even tell what letter it is, because the alphabet has been lost there. Restore it, find it, print it, insert it. It doesn't matter, you know? And it says there that this dictionary was specially published for gymnasiums to make it easier for students to translate from Greek. These are regular school children who attended school. And still do now. I wouldn't say that it's all me. But now, when there's a question about what meat actually is, what kind of meat? There's more to it. You understand? You have to think about the fact that these people are in a very difficult situation. And salo is considered meat. And an egg can be considered meat, or you can replace meat with eggs and cottage cheese. When it is said that you need to eat meat. Ladies and gentlemen, do you notice how people used to understand the meanings of words better in the past? But now we just get confused. Which of these products is called meat? I wanted to end the video here, but for some reason, I realized that I still need to clarify at the end, once and for all, what meat actually is. And now we will take the Book of Books. The book that contains answers to almost every question. The Book of Truths. And this book is called a dictionary. This book is called a dictionary. Right now, I have Kuznetsova's dictionary in my hands, and together we will now read the definition of the word meat. The first definition of meat is the carcass or part of the carcass of animals intended for consumption as food. Once again, meat is the carcass or part of the carcass of animals intended for consumption as food. The second definition is colloquial, referring to the muscle tissue of animals and humans. The third definition is a dish prepared from animal carcasses, except for fish. Third, fish is considered meat. Let's look at the dictionary again. A dish prepared from animal carcasses, except for fish. All right, it seems like we have a meat lover here. If you can hear me, let's take a look now. So, yes, next question. Is chicken considered meat? What does our book of truth, our great book of knowledge, tell us? Page 1043. Bird. First definition. A vertebrate animal covered with down and feathers, with wings, 2 legs, and a beak. Second definition. Such animals as objects of breeding, hunting, and as a food product. So what is meat? Let's repeat once again. Meat is the carcass or part of the carcass of animals intended for food, including poultry. We have a vertebrate animal covered with down and feathers, with wings, 2 legs, and a beak. Poultry meat is considered meat. Here is your homework assignment. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's very presumptuous to think that people in the past didn't know anything, that they were so naive, so foolish, so idiotic, that they described pellagra since the 16th century, and now in the modern world, it no longer exists. Now we no longer have nutrient deficiencies. Literally, up until the 1920s, the 1940s, the 1950s of the 20th century, since the beginning of time, they existed. But then they all disappeared, and no one knew anything anymore. No one before us. And here we are, so smart and wonderful. But we still can't decide whether salo is considered meat or not. And when I answered the question, "What kind of meat do you eat?" I wrote "not raw," and the person got offended. I'm sorry, of course. If I was talking to someone of royal blood, who occasionally goes hunting and just can't decide today whether to kill a deer or a boar, then maybe the question should have been asked more specifically. But as a doctor, I'm interested in any kind of meat, as long as it's not raw, whatever you prefer. And what is meat? It's written in the dictionary. So, if you want the best minds of humanity, represented by me, to take care of your health, because we rely on real scientists who knew how the human body works, who knew how to change processes, to reverse pathological processes safely and effectively. Then, please, you need to take a nutrient deficiency test and go through your programs. The program for eliminating nutrient deficiencies is done properly if you take it and go through it once in your life, just once, because we are changing the body's functioning status. And then, if something happens, well, of course, certain situations. If a person gets too cold, experiences severe stress, some kind of poisoning, yes. In other words, there was clearly a situation of increased consumption. The body was exhausted. Well, then you need to go through the test again, remove everything, replenish everything that was used up. But I'll say right away that if such situations happen and a person comes in, then after that, replenishment happens quite quickly. The main thing is to do it once in your life, and after that, that's enough. Even if something like that happens in life, well, life is life, right? If it does happen, then it all goes by easier, faster, and so on. Thank you for your attention, and let's not arrogantly think that the people who lived before us were so foolish and that we are just so incredibly smart. No, that's not the case. We need to rely on genuine knowledge, on discoveries that, if they are true discoveries, will never lose their relevance. Never. And if you apply this genuine data, you will always be guaranteed to get the result that this data leads to, as you described. If it's pellagra, Then we eliminate pellagra, and that's it. And the person regains their health. Thank you, best wishes, and see you at the test.